Good evening. It's now 8 o'clock here in Nairobi, Kenya. This is the big story we are focusing for you tonight. My name is Yvonne Okwara Matole, and it's all about the big ban. And Acting Security Minister, Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, has barred the National Super Alliance from taking their demonstrations to the central business districts of Nairobi, Mombasa, and Kisumu. Matiang'i says there has been a rise in lawlessness and a breach of peace during the NASA anti-IEBC protests, adding that he will prefer charges on the NASA Secretariat CEO Norman Magaya as the organizer of the processions. Meanwhile, the NASA parliamentary group has responded to Matiang'i's statement. They claim the CS has no power to restrict peaceful protests. NASA co-principal Moses Wetangula seemingly had a not-so-interesting exchange on SMS with the man in charge of security of the nation. All of this, plus the Starehe Member of Parliament, now wants the IEBC headquarters moved from the CBD of Nairobi. We want to begin now with the CS's directive and the opposition coalition's response.
The Act, due to the clear, present, and imminent danger of breach of peace and public order as witnessed in recent demonstrations, the government notifies the public that, for the time being, we will not allow demonstrations within the central business districts of Nairobi, Mombasa, and Kisumu.
All right, so that's our big story tonight, and we want to talk about it from three different perspectives today. So tonight on the show, we will be speaking to the police spokesman, Mr. Charles Owino. He will be joining us shortly to talk more about that. We'll also be hearing from the business community, the trustee of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, who incidentally had a meeting with the Cabinet Secretary, the Acting Cabinet Secretary for Interior, just before he made his announcements. We'll be speaking to them as to the effects of demos on business within Nairobi, Kisumu, and Mombasa. We'll also then be speaking to Sophia Wanuna, who's our lead reporter. And Sophia, let's start with you, because you are, interestingly, with the man who's at the center of this anyway, at least according to the Acting Interior Cabinet Secretary, and that is Mr. Norman Magaya, who seems to be a wanted man tonight.
Yes, a wanted man tonight, or at least on the spotlight, in light of these demonstrations that are meant to go a notch higher starting next week. Remember, the National Super Alliance had announced starting next week, it's every day, Monday through to Friday. We saw this week it was Monday, Wednesday, and tomorrow as well. Norman Magaya, the CEO, NASA Secretariat, joins me now. Thank you for making the time, Magaya. Let's begin with the CS, Acting CS Interior, talking about you to bear responsibility for the damages and destruction of property that is occasioned by the protesters.
I think one, all notifications to police are done pursuant to Section 5 of the Public Order Management Act, that requires that before you hold a public assembly or procession, that you notify the police. And the import of that notification is, one, for the police to gauge whether there is another event scheduled on the same venue or on the same street that you intend to do your procession. And if there is, then they will do a written notification to you, indicating clearly that you either choose an alternative venue or street for your procession. If there is none, there is no requirement in law that the police will write to you, granting you permission either for a demonstration or for a public gathering. And the sole import of that notification is so that police can provide security. And I think this matter was buttressed in the case of Ferdinand Waititu versus the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, case petition number 169 of 2016, where Justice Onguto found that it is the sole duty of the police to provide security both to demonstrators and to the general public, to ensure that those who are picketing have adequate security and to ensure that those who are going about their business do not have unnecessary infringement from those demonstrating.
So that granted, Norman, we witnessed vandalization of vehicles, we saw looting, property was destroyed. Do you take any responsibility for that, having been the one written to the police to have, or rather to notify them of these demonstrations, and that in essence the police argue, and now we're hearing from CSU, bear responsibility over any action that takes place during that period of time?
You cannot bear responsibility for performing a duty that the law requires you to do. And all that is all I do, that whenever there is such processions, I notify police at least 3 days notice so that they are able to organize adequate security. And it will help if the police who are working with us, that we will start this procession together. We will sit together and define which streets, which avenues we are using, from what time to what time these demonstrations end. It will help if we were working together that way. But the approach the police have taken is rather to take charge of guarding the IEBC headquarters. But if this were the case, and this happened once last year after the Justice Onguto judgment, we were able to move with police officers in tow from Uhuru Park through Haile Selassie, through Moy Avenue, through University Way, and back to Uhuru Park. And those demonstrations were very peaceful and very successful. But what I need to add is that as a coalition, we do not support violence. We do not condone violence.
And you agree it happened in especially the last demonstration?
And that is why we have encouraged police that if there were culprits that took advantage of these demonstrations to vandalize private property, to loot and attack innocent members of the public, these culprits can be identified and police should be able to arrest them, because then they were not part of our demonstrations. But most significantly is that we have been giving notices for our demonstrations. But there's another group, the Nairobi business community, that has not bothered to apply for any demonstration permit from police. They have been there every time we go for these demonstrations, and largely they are responsible for most of this looting and violence that has been witnessed in the city. And I think we will appeal to the police to go after the members of this proscribed gang, because this was a gang that was proscribed by the late Minister for Security, George Saitoti. There has been no gazette notice to legalize them. They remain an illegal entity, and the police should move against them and arrest them. They have not sought permission in accordance with the law to demonstrate, and so they have no right to be on the streets interfering with those who have submitted themselves to the law.
So you're arguing the looters not part of the NASA team demonstrating, but your letter to the police also indicated that you'd organize for there to be peace marshals that would ensure everybody sticks to the route that has been granted at least permission to use during the protesters, during the demonstrations. I beg your pardon. Has this happened? Because what we've seen is a rather almost just playing it by the year when it comes to the day of protesting.
I think we introduced the concept of demonstration peace marshals from last year, so that we are able to manage the group that we have. And it will have helped that these peace marshals who are working with the police to be able to identify who are the members who are part of the group that is demonstrating, and who are these looters that want to take advantage of the demonstrations to interfere with the general public tranquility. So this provision for peace marshals is an idea we developed last year. We have continued to recruit more members into it so that we have orderly processions. And you will agree with me that we had our group that moved from Uhuru Park through Haile Selassie, through Kenyatta Avenue, back to Koinange Street, through University Way, and they came back to Uhuru Park, where the procession ended at around 4:30 p.m. And this was our core group that was demonstrating. Mm-hmm. The other opportunistic looters that took advantage of this never followed the protocol that we had put down. And that's where we've said that some of these people can be identified on video, that they have been captured looting, harassing members of the public. They should be apprehended because they have committed crimes.
All right. Before we talk about the way forward and if tomorrow what your plan is and as far as your demonstrations, let's listen to Acting Interior CS Fred Matiang'i, what he had to say and as far as the charges they intend to prefer against the CEO.
Demonstrations. And I wish to confirm to you that we shall prefer charges against the said Mr. Magaya and we are waiting for the report on the damages caused so as to quantify the value of the claims.
All right, so the acting Interior CS saying that charges will be preferred against you. In fact, they've gone ahead to call on members of the public, business people to come out if any of the property was destroyed so that they can quantitatively put this together to bring those charges against you.
I think the law is well settled that you cannot be vicariously liable for acts and omissions committed by other people. This matter came up last year. There was a bus that was burned on Juja Road. The owners of those buses sued the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka for compensation. And the court found that you could not hold liable to the people who had called for demonstrations for acts and omissions committed by other individuals. Mm-hmm. That when it comes to criminal law is individual responsibility. You cannot confer acts done by another person and impose that liability on an individual that had nothing to do with it. And the duty I performed in notifying the police is a duty recognized in law under Section 5 of the Public Order Management Act. So you cannot be punished legally for performing a duty that the law has imposed on you. Otherwise, what the CS will be doing is to try and criminalize those who have complied with the requirements of the law. If, for example, we had called these demonstrations without notifying the police, then that way, perhaps they could say we have convened illegal assembly and we will be liable for convening illegal assembly. But where we have submitted ourselves to the law, followed the laid down procedure, notified the police, and not just notified them, but invited them to provide security both to the demonstrators and the general public. Yeah. It will then follow that it will be an absurdity in law for the CS to impute that they could prefer criminal charges against a person who has complied with the law.
All right. Yvonne, before I bring this back to you, one more question. Tomorrow, are you intending to go ahead with the demonstrations? CBDs, Nairobi, Kisumu, Mombasa have been cordoned off. You cannot get in there. So what's the plan?
I think one of the hallmarks of the Justice Onguto judgment of 2016, and which remains unchallenged, was that it was not even the duty of the police to draw picket lines. And if you look at the law, the Constitution, the way it is framed, that people will pocket, people will demonstrate to present petitions to public authorities. The offices of IEBC are on University Way. So you cannot present a petition. You cannot present grievances to that public body without getting to the CBD. And the court was emphatic that even if there were two groups demonstrating that have submitted themselves to the law, it's the duty of the police to create a buffer zone to ensure that these two groups follow the law, that they have a peaceful and an armed procession.
So you're going to town tomorrow, CBD?
Yes, as our leadership have announced that these demonstrations will continue. But what we will emphasize is that these processions, the law requires that they are absolutely peaceful, that the members must come unarmed and submit themselves to the requirements of the Constitution. And if that were the case, as we have organized, these people should be given escort with the police, do their procession through the agreed route, surrender their petition to IEBC and back to the starting venue.
And have you ever been able to surrender the petition? And as you answer that, I know we're pressed for time. The Starehe constituency MP is seeking to have IEBC move their HQ to Bombas of Kenya. So if they moved, no more CBD for you.
I think the role of a member of parliament is set out in the Constitution. What the member of Starehe is doing is overstepping the mandate that is conferred to him. It is not in his place to prescribe for public bodies where their offices should be. I think what needs to be done is to have mechanisms that expand extensively the enjoyment of fundamental rights and freedoms. But these fundamental rights and freedoms should be enjoyed in a manner consistent with the law.
Even
so we should lean.
So
I've said they should be enjoyed within the confines of the law, okay. But we should always lean towards ensuring that we accord the people the greatest opportunity for them to enjoy their rights, as opposed to stifling these rights based on security reasons. And I have no reason to believe that if there was proper cooperation and coordination between the organizers, us, of these demonstrations and the security agencies that we could achieve a more middle ground objective in terms of ensuring that there is enjoyment of rights, but at the same time that there is peace and tranquility, and there is no interference with the general public who are going about their business. Because as you demonstrate, not everyone subscribes to the objective through which you are demonstrating.
All right.
Yeah.
Many thanks. Thank you so much, Norman Magaya, CEO, NASA Secretariat. Yvonne, as you hear from the CEO saying that those involved in those acts of looting, not part of NASA supporters that have been demonstrating, but they intend to go ahead with the protest tomorrow, and in fact, straight into the CBD, because the HQ IBC is in the CBD.
Yeah, thanks, Sophia. I think that's where we take it straight to the police spokesman, Mr. Charles Owino, who's been listening into that conversation with the CEO of the NASA Secretariat, Norman Magaya. Mr. Owino, I think first to start off, the first question would be, what would the police's responsibility be in ensuring that these protests are peaceful, and in ensuring that, some of the violence that we saw, didn't occur, or if it does, that those people are brought to book? Because the acting CS is saying that those who organize should be held personally liable. But what would the role be of policemen in terms of keeping the peace during such demonstrations?
Thank you so much, Yvonne. First of all, I would like to thank Magaya for being quite eloquent and having taken his time to understand the Public Order Act management. First of all, it is important to understand that we are talking about public order. And public order, when you come about the Public Order Act, it means that we are all committed as Kenyans to ensure that there is public order. And that is why there is the Public Order Act. He has said clearly that there's a purpose of notifying the police at least 3 days before and not more than 14 days before. The main reason is that we ensure that persons that are demonstrating, picketing, or sending petitions for various reasons do not clash. And that is why you have to notify the police also of the time that you intend to carry out your demonstration, assembly, or even picketing, or even sending your petition. And you also have to specify the route that you'd want to take. Equally, if you are the person that is going to notify the police, you notify the police, and in the notification, it is said that you must be present. The reason why you have to be present is because you need to control your people. And I heard Magaya talk about peaceful marshals. The reason as to why you have to be present and control your people is to ensure that you assist police. For example, if you see, the police may not know who is a member of your team or who is not a member of your team. And therefore, it is your responsibility to notify the police that I can see this group are not members of our team and therefore are not supposed to demonstrate. And you cannot go and throw back your inability to identify persons that you think are not members of your team and say police ought to arrest them. We don't know members of your team. Kenyans are one, and if it is NASA, we cannot tell this is a member of NASA or not.
Okay, so now, in line with that, Mr. Owino, you've talked about the responsibilities of the person that notifies the police and ensures their peace marshals and identifies some of the people that they think may not be part of their supporters. But what is the police responsibility in this regard?
The police responsibility generally is to protect lives and properties of all Kenyans, including the demonstrators. And that is why, as the person leading the demonstration or the person who has notified us, you have to be present so that you can control your people, and equally so that you can identify those persons that you think are not members of your team. I just want to
no.
Just a minute,
allow me to interject, Mr. Owino, because you just said that the police responsibility is to protect the demonstrators and protect property.
Not only demonstrators, all Kenyans, including yourself, Yvonne.
That would be involved. That is fine. So the question then would be, if property was damaged, then doesn't the police take responsibility for not keeping the peace and protecting property and perhaps other people that may be involved, demonstrators and all other well-meaning Kenyans? Does the police not take responsibility for that?
Yvonne, I think that is naive. we take responsibility. That is why when a demonstration is peaceful and then it becomes riotous, we disperse that demonstration. And before we disperse it, we have to first of all, to read for your proclamation. We have very clear procedures. But before we go to that, there are issues that were raised by Naman when he said that there are individuals called Nairobi business community
yes.
that was equally interfering. I have a very simple question. We saw yesterday in Homa Bay, a police officer attacked, beaten, and his gun burnt. I don't know whether in Homa Bay we had these Nairobi business people. We saw also skirmishes in Kisumu. We have seen demonstrators, because the Article 37 of the Constitution that provides for all this is very clear, that you must demonstrate peacefully and you must demonstrate unarmed. Remember, Okwara, many a times you find demonstrators closing roads, putting barricades, putting stones, coming up with roadblocks, robbing people. I don't think that is what we require.
Okay.
I think this is a
right.
beautiful. Just
so,
a minute, Okwara.
As the police,
just a minute.
We've
just
got to
a
move
minute,
the conversation forward, Mr. Owino, please. As the police, have you then been able to arrest some of these individuals who are barricading roads, who are looting, because, like you say, it's difficult to tell who's NASA and who's not. So why would you then hold Norman Magaya responsible for all the damage that has been done? And he cited a previous case, which he says was thrown out for that. Isn't there individual responsibility? I mean, if I was one of them
Okwara,
and took advantage of the situation, have you made any arrests?
Okwara, I want you to be keen and listen to our discussion and conversation. I'd said that there's a purpose of having a person notify police, and I've said that the leader of the group must be present. It is a requirement for purposes of identification. That does not mean that individuals that are involved in stealing, I think this is a media house, and you have always been giving us pictures, live demonstrations taking place, and you cannot run away and say, we don't have a group of thugs and thieves doing this. Yes, if you go to our respective police stations across the country, we have quite a number of people that we have arrested and charged for various offenses. But what is there is that the person that is leading this team must take responsibility, and there's no shortcut about it. And if anybody feels he should not take responsibility, we are not beating anyone. We are simply taking you to court, defend yourself, and that is all. This is a democratic country.
Okay. So this is my question to you then. What happens tomorrow? Because NASA co-principal Moses Wetangula says they will go on, and that this is a breach of their constitutional right, Article 37, that allows them to peaceably and unarmed picket and demonstrate.
Okwara, you are aware that Honorable Wetangula is a lawyer, and I respect him. He's my personal friend. I want you to refer to the Constitution, Article 24(1)(d), which indicates the limitations of your rights and fundamental freedoms. That as you enjoy your rights and fundamental freedoms, you don't need to breach rights and fundamental freedoms of others. And you are quite aware that you have been seeing, you have been screening what is happening. When, for example, Okwara, today, your mother is coming from Western Kenya, and she's sick and you are rushing her to Nairobi Hospital, and then people close the road. That is not the purpose of demonstration. Your mother will die on the road, or your father or your relative or any other Kenyan. We have a duty as the police to protect all Kenyan citizens, their properties, and their lives. And there's no shortcut about it, and we are not going to discuss it. We have courts of law. Kenya is a democratic country, the multi-party democracy. You are allowed to exercise your democracy, but let us be gentle, let us be people who are informed, and let us do what is right on all spheres. What I need to say is, we the police, we are not enemies of Kenyan citizens. We the police are not fighting or competing for any elective political post as we are. We only have one duty, to protect lives and properties, and we have no interest on any other issue apart from protecting lives and properties of citizens.
All right, Mr. Wino, please stay with me, because we also have the trustee of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance who's with us on the show tonight. The big story, obviously, some property damage that has been reported, and the acting cabinet secretary is asking anyone to sort of go to the police and start to quantify damages so that you can put together a report. Lee Karuri, if you can hear me, tell us what your expectations are from the police with regard to the demos and the protests that we have seen. Are you satisfied with the sort of protection that has been offered for businesses so far?
Let me say that the business community has been very concerned about demonstrations because since the demos started, we have seen lots of business. A lot of our people do not work properly when the demos are going on. A lot of the staff members stay away, and that is really affecting the performance of the economy across everywhere that we are experiencing the demos. And whereas the demos are constitutional, we have seen that they have gone chaotic, and instead of being peaceful, they have become, they are affecting business everywhere where they are happening. And we believe that that is not the way it should be. We believe that the business community too has a right to a peaceful business environment, and therefore to have so much disruption that we cannot do our work is not fair at all. So we are happy that the areas that are CBD, as from what we heard today from the acting CS, they will be left to continue with normal business, and that the demonstrations can happen elsewhere is good news for the business community, so that we can be able to normalize our functions.
All right, so you are pleased with
Yes.
with the ban of protests in the CBDs in Nairobi, Kisumu, and Mombasa?
Yes, the business community is actually satisfied with that, and we would like the demonstrators to keep away from where we are doing business, so that the Kenyan economy can continue running, everyone can continue to earn their livelihood in a normal way. So when that does not happen, it becomes an infringement on the rights of others, and it affects the peaceful environment that we should be enjoying. So we feel that it has not been a level ground for us as business community. Mm-hmm. So we are satisfied with that direction that has been taken. In fact, as a matter of fact, our request has been that no demonstrations should be held, to allow all Kenyans continue to thrive in their normal way, and there are other institutions that are available for redress of the issues that are being raised.
All right, Lee,
that has been the view of the business.
Okay, Lee, it is
Yes.
the right of anyone to picket and demonstrate. Where do you think the balance is? Because it always seems to be business versus a democratic right to demonstrate and picket and present a petition to, any office. In fact, it does say exactly that in Article 37 of that. So, you're saying not to demonstrate, but some would say that would be infringing on the rights of those that actually do want to demonstrate.
Yeah, now what we are saying is that we know that demonstrations are lawful from a constitutional standpoint, but our desired approach is that no demonstrations. However, when they happen, they should be peaceful. We have seen when teachers, doctors, nurses, and other people who are also aggrieved and they want to present their petitions to authorities, they have been able to conduct themselves in a disciplined manner. They have not disrupted the business. They have been able to manage their affairs in a way that everyone else is able to carry on with their normal life. But this is different because it's turning chaotic, vandalism, and therefore there is a lot of indiscipline that is coming out of the demos. Whereas other sectors of the economy and other sectors of life, when they go out to picket or demonstrate, they're able to do it peacefully, and Kenyans are not disrupted.
Okay. All right. I want us to take a break. Gentlemen, continue to stay with me. Lee Karuri, who is a trustee at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, as well as Charles Owino, who is the police spokesman in the country. We'll continue to talk about this when we return, particularly on the issue of counting the cost and the damages that we have seen taking place as a result of the demos, whether by NASA supporters or whoever those persons claim to be, whether it's the Nairobi business community or indeed others that may be seeking to take advantage of the situation. All of that is coming up with the gentleman I have with me. The big story today is, of course, that ban on rallies within the central business districts of Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu. We have more to discuss when we return.